Polish millionaire is speaking out today after facing backlash for stealing a hat from a child at the U.S. Open this week, and it wasn't to apologize.
It was the U.S. Open, one of tennis's grandest stages. Polish player Camille Machak had just secured a win, and in a tradition fans adore, reached for a personal gift to hand to a young supporter. That boy was Brock, barely tall enough to see over the barrier, his face lit with the kind of awe only sports can create. Machak lifted his cap and stretched it toward Brock, signaling that this small fan moment was about to become unforgettable. But before the cap could land in Brock's hands, a man leaned in from the crowd. Not a rival child, not another desperate fan. A grown man, later identified as Polish CEO Pod Sturek, reached forward and snatched it. The crowd gasped, cameras caught it, and in that instant, the emotional script flipped.
Let me introduce you to Douchebag of the Week.
A millionaire CEO broke the heart of a young tennis fan over the weekend when he snatched the cap of star player Camille Machak from the hands of a child in the stands after the match.
Instead of tears of joy, there was stunned silence. Brock's disappointed protest was muffled by the roar of the crowd, but his expression said everything. This moment had been stolen. Fans at home didn't need commentary. The footage spoke louder than words. A millionaire had just taken a gift from a child and done it in the most public way possible. Within minutes, the clip was everywhere. Zoomed, slowed down, replayed with captions like greedy, heartless, and shameless. TikTok stitched it into memes. Twitter called it the most embarrassing US Open moment in years. Reddit threads popped up demanding answers, and the most pressing question wasn't about the tennis match, it was about the man. Who was he? Why would he do this? And what kind of adult robs a child of a player's gift in full view of the world? The answer didn't take long.
It sent the internet into a spin. A Polish businessman who snatched a signed cap from a young tennis fan has finally apologised. And though the exchange only lasted for a split second at the US Open, it's turned into a major headache for the millionaire days after it was all caught on camera.
Internet sleuths are relentless, especially when fueled by outrage. Within hours, the man's name, face, and business were plastered across social feeds. He wasn't just a random spectator. He was a wealthy CEO from Poland, running a paving company called Drogbrook. What could have remained an anonymous act of rudeness instantly transformed into a full-blown scandal attached to a name, a brand, and an entire reputation. That's when the dominoes started to fall. His company's search results were hijacked by scandal headlines, comment sections filled with angry backlash. Even Google's autocomplete began attaching his name to the word hat. And suddenly, this wasn't about one cap at a tennis match. It was about class, greed, and a viral moment redefining a man's entire public identity. The crowd may have left the stadium that day, but online, the story was just beginning. Because the clip wasn't just funny or frustrating. It symbolized something larger, how quickly the internet punishes arrogance, especially when a child is involved. And for Pod Sturek, the firestorm had only just started.
It is a painful but necessary lesson in humility.
But also some much-needed damage control. The businessman's paving company has been bombed by negative reviews, and there has been a chorus of critics online calling for his head.
By the next morning, outrage was impossible to ignore. Fans didn't just criticize Pod Sturek, they dissected every frame of the video. Slow-motion clips highlighted the boy's outstretched hands. Commentators paused on the second when Brock said, "No, what are you doing?" And the CEO ignored him. Memes flooded Instagram and TikTok, portraying Sturek as a cartoon villain, captions reading, "Millionaire steals joy from a child." What turned a cringeworthy moment into a global scandal was the speed of fan reaction. Ordinary tennis fans united with casual viewers who never cared about the sport. The clip didn't require context, it was universal. Everyone knows what generosity looks like. Everyone recognizes when that generosity gets snatched away. And the symbolism was devastating. A child denied joy by a man who already had everything. Insiders close to the tournament described the fallout as instant PR chaos. Reporters swarmed for quotes, organizers scrambled to control the headlines, and even fellow players were caught off guard. It looked bad, one unnamed ATP source told Polish media, and once it hit social media, there was no putting it back in the box. In other words, the US Open wasn't trending for a record-breaking match, but for a stolen hat. The biggest twist came when Camille Machak himself stepped in. Instead of brushing it off, he used his own platform to correct the wrong. Posting on Instagram, he asked fans to help him find Brock, the boy from the viral clip. His post was brief but pointed. "This cap was meant for the young fan. Let's make this right." That single message reframed the scandal, turning Machak into the hero and Sturek into the undeniable villain. Fans responded immediately, rallying to identify the boy. Within hours, Brock's family was found. The next day, a heartwarming scene unfolded. Machak met Brock in person, presented him with signed memorabilia, and posed for photos that quickly went viral. The boy, once disappointed, now beamed with pride. Social media celebrated the gesture, hailing Machak as a true sportsman who had restored the magic of the moment. But this only intensified the anger towards Sturek. His silence created a vacuum filled with rage. Fans didn't just want Brock to be happy, they wanted the man who caused the disappointment to face consequences. One viral tweet summed up the mood. "Camille made it right, now what about the man who made it wrong?" For Sturek, this was a nightmare scenario. The more Machak's redemption story spread, the worse his own inaction looked. Instead of being remembered as just another face in the crowd, he was cemented as the antagonist in a viral morality play. And with each meme, each stitch, each comment, the tension mounted. Everyone was waiting to see how would the CEO respond. The pressure finally cracked. Days after the scandal first exploded, Pod Sturek broke his silence. The wealthy CEO, now branded across the internet as the Hat Thief, released a formal statement on his company's website. For many, this was the moment they had been waiting for, an apology, maybe even some accountability, but the words he chose only deepened the controversy. In his statement, Sturek claimed it had all been a misunderstanding. He explained that he believed the cap was being handed to him, not the boy. He mentioned that his sons had asked for autographs earlier in the match, and in the chaos of the crowd, he thought the tennis player was signaling toward them. "I regret the confusion," he wrote, apologizing to the boy, the family, the fans, and even Camille Machak himself. On paper, it sounded reasonable, a simple mistake amplified by social media. But when fans compared his words to the footage, the explanation fell apart. The video didn't show a casual mix-up. It showed Sturek reaching aggressively, ignoring the boy's protests, and holding on to the cap with clear intent. The contradiction between what people saw and what Sturek claimed became impossible to reconcile. Instead of extinguishing the fire, his statement poured gasoline on it. To make matters worse, one line in his apology raised eyebrows. He described the boy as injured, a translation choice that baffled readers. Was he referring to emotional disappointment, or had the meaning been lost in translation? The ambiguity fed into online mockery, with some users joking, "So he injured him with greed?" Even respected commentators labeled the statement clumsy at best, misleading at worst. And then came the rumors. As the apology circulated, screenshots began spreading, alleged posts from Sturek, his wife, or his legal team. Some claimed he had threatened to sue critics. Others painted him as dismissive, allegedly saying, "If the boy were faster, he'd have the hat." These posts spread like wildfire across Twitter and Reddit. They felt believable enough to stick, but there was a problem. None of them were verified. Sturek insisted they were fake, crafted to stir outrage and deepen the scandal. But the internet rarely waits for fact checks. By the time his clarification arrived, the damage was done. The CEO was now associated not only with the stolen hat, but also with a wave of unverified hostile statements. Fans weren't parsing truth from rumor. They were blending it all together into one narrative. This man wasn't sorry. He was arrogant. For a businessman whose career had been built on reputation, contracts, and trust, the fallout was catastrophic. His company's name was now hijacked by memes and negative headlines. Years of community sponsorships and local sports initiatives were erased in the public eye by one viral moment and an apology that convinced almost no one. And the bigger question emerged: if the cameras hadn't been rolling, would he have apologized at all? Or was this damage control, not remorse? By this point, the story had escaped the tennis world. It wasn't just fans dissecting the footage anymore. It was late-night hosts, satirical YouTubers, and international media outlets piling on. The clip played on loop in talk show monologues, each joke harsher than the last. One British commentator called it the most on-brand metaphor for the rich in 2025, snatching from kids and calling it a misunderstanding. The crowd laughed, but for Pod Sturek, the laughter was lethal. His name was now a punchline. Institutional fallout quickly followed. Drogbrook, his paving company, faced a surge of one-star reviews on Google. Rival firms seized the moment to highlight their own community outreach, implicitly contrasting themselves with the greedy CEO. Reports suggest that at least one potential business partner quietly backed out of negotiations, citing reputational concerns. The company's PR team scrambled, disabling comments, locking social pages, and trying to push back with reminders of past charity work. But online momentum was against them. The scandal had become bigger than a single incident. It was now a case study in corporate arrogance. Meanwhile, fans weren't letting go. On TikTok, edits of the incident layered dramatic music over the slow-motion snatch. One viral clip replaced the stolen hat with a golden crown, captioned, "The King of Entitlement." Another showed Camille Machak later restoring the gift to Brock, labeling the tennis star the true hero. The contrast was stark, a selfless athlete against a selfish executive. Viewers didn't just watch, they participated, remixing and reinterpreting the scandal until it became cultural shorthand. Inside Poland, the story cut even deeper. National outlets debated what it said about wealth and privilege in the country. Some op-eds framed Sturek as a symbol of how business elites treat ordinary citizens. "If this is how he acts in public," one columnist wrote, "imagine how he negotiates contracts in private." The outrage spilled offline too. Reports emerged of people heckling his company vehicles, shouting "hat thief" as they passed. The incident had transformed from a sports blooper into a social commentary flashpoint. And then came the biggest irony: Camille Machak retired from the tournament due to injury. The story that should have dominated headlines, a player bowing out of the US Open, was overshadowed by the scandal of a cap. Sports journalists admitted they'd never seen anything like it. A viral fan moment eclipsing professional achievement. It was the ultimate humiliation for Sturek because his actions had hijacked the narrative of an entire tournament. At its peak, the backlash wasn't just about a stolen hat. It was about what the moment represented. The image of privilege taking from innocence, of money overshadowing magic. And for millions watching, it confirmed a suspicion already simmering in the cultural zeitgeist. That sometimes the real villains of sport aren't on the court, but in the stands. In the days that followed, the scandal settled into something even more permanent, a reputation reshaped. For Pod Sturek, the hat wasn't just an object. It became a symbol of everything people disliked about corporate power and entitlement. Years of careful business building, community sponsorships, and polished PR campaigns were wiped out by a few seconds of video. The contrast was brutal. One fan moment ruined, one child disappointed, one CEO caught in the act, and a global audience that refused to forgive. Fans didn't just move on, they turned the incident into a cautionary tale. Parents online pointed to the clip as a lesson in greed, while business analysts cited it as an example of reputation collapse in the digital age. Even sports historians noted how rarely a single fan interaction had overshadowed the athletic contest itself. One viral tweet summed it up. One hat did what 1,000 exposés couldn't. It revealed a man's true character. The fallout didn't stop at Sturek himself. His company's online presence remained toxic, buried under memes, negative headlines, and endless reminders of the scandal. For months, Google searches returned not project portfolios, but parodies. Employees were reportedly frustrated, insiders claimed, forced to defend their workplace to friends and family who only saw their boss as the hat thief. Business can recover from economic downturns, but recovering from a cultural branding disaster is far harder. And yet, the incident also spotlighted the best of sportsmanship. Camille Machak's intervention turned him into a hero far beyond Poland. His decision to track down Brock, sign autographs, and restore the magic of that moment was replayed just as often as the theft itself. Fans hailed him as the player who saved the story, proof that generosity could triumph over greed. In a strange way, the scandal amplified his legacy, reminding audiences that the heart of sport lies in its connection to fans. Culturally, the clip entered the same league as viral scandals like Balloon Boy or the infamous Fire Festival cheese sandwich, not because of its scale, but because of its symbolism. It showed how fragile reputation is in the era of constant cameras and instant uploads. If a millionaire can become a global villain for snatching a cap, what does that say about accountability in bigger scandals? For many, that was the lasting question. Had Sturek been unlucky, or had the world simply seen him too clearly? And that's where the story ends, with a boy who finally smiled, a player who earned respect, and a CEO who discovered that sometimes the smallest act can carry the greatest weight. A hat meant for joy instead became a crown of shame. proving that in today's world, reputation isn't built in boardrooms. It's judged in seconds on screens. CTA. If a single cap at the US Open can destroy a millionaire's image, imagine what happens when the next scandal hits Hollywood. Subscribe now, hit the like button, and turn on notifications, because the next viral moment could be even bigger, and you won't want to miss it.